Good morning, everyone. Super excited to bring today's episode number 17 of our Seriously Social podcast. Doing something a little bit different than we normally do. Really excited actually to be going live. So, hello, welcome to everybody that'll be joining us today on TikTok. Super excited for today's episode. I'm Lorenzo Johnson with Socially In. Got my wonderful main man over here, Kaushal and
Yo.
Super excited to kind of get rocking and rolling today. Per usual, what we like to do is dive into the world of social media. So things that are trending, things that are hip, things that are popular, things that are concerning, and really giving you guys our take on it, and then what we're doing as an organization to really making sure we're taking those things into account and into consideration. So without further ado, Kosha, what we getting into today, brother?
Love it. Great intro. And today, honestly, a little bit of a shorter episode. There's some few points that we want to touch bases on. And those three of them specifically that kind of came top of mind as kind of I was just doing some research and figuring out what's been happening. And the three things that we're going to dive into today is first this big trend of NPC live streaming that's happening on
It's
TikTok.
crazy.
Some very funny, some I'm sure disturbing, some odd ones out there. But it's definitely taking the world by storm. It's insane to see what's happening. There are a lot of creators who are starting to monetize off of this, and I think it's a huge topic, especially as a lot of opportunities start to become more available for people to become creators and be able to monetize out of the content that they create, and something that comes natural to a lot of the people that grew up in a digital first world.
100%.
On top of that, we're going to be talking about LinkedIn AI, and I think LinkedIn has been one of the platforms and all of the social platforms really have embraced it, but LinkedIn is really starting to take off when it comes to AI, whether it's helping come up with images through AI, whether it's to help build out your profile through AI. Just recently read about where they're enhancing what they're doing from LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Recruiter to allow AI to build, automated lists for you and the perfect personas for you to make sure you're connecting with those individuals. So LinkedIn and AI in general, huge storm. And you can't have an episode, I guess, without talking about Elon and X and Twitter or whatever you want to call it nowadays.
It's always
And
something.
the latest thing,
It's always something. He's
the
a
latest thing,
mastermind of PR, brother. He's a mastermind of keeping them in the news.
he really is. And, it's this whole fighting with him and Zuck and everything that's been going on. I mean, if anything, not only is he a mastermind entrepreneur, but he's definitely a mastermind entertainer at this point. But yes, this whole blocking, um, removing the blocking feature on Twitter or X, as you call it, that he wants to implement because of his stance behind free speech and allowing anybody and everyone really to say what's top of mind for them. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Three hot topics today. I say let's start off with keeping Elon a little bit towards the end. Let's start off with the NPC live streaming. I know you've seen it. I know I've seen it. Where do you want to start? What I would say is, do you have a specific individual that has caught fire that you're interested in, or have you just seen it take the industry by storm? And is you more just interested in what's happening?
Yeah, so as you know, as we start to do more with TikTok Live, obviously we're going live today and different things like that. We're always trying to see what's getting the views, what's earning the type of content and viewership that we're looking for. And so it I want to say it doesn't surprise me that NPC is, but it still does. So the one person that really starts to come to mind with this NPC is the young woman that does the ice cream thing. So I've seen a few different ones and different things
Pinky
like
Doll,
that.
right, or something like that.
Yeah. And so
I think it's Pinky Doll. Yeah.
I guess to me, the thing that never ceases to amaze me is what we put our attention towards. Being the types of brands and stuff that we work with, we're always thinking, what's engaging, what's this stuff, and we're always thinking about things that stay on brand, things that are super professional. And it never surprises me the wild things, the completely outside of the box things that people are doing that are just getting crazy amounts of viewership before we start talking about how much money somebody is making and some of those things. So I think the it gets old to me relatively quickly. So I've kind of checked it out in different things like that. And so I'm just like, this is people are watching this in droves and in minutes and in such large
Hmm.
blocks of time. That's the biggest surprise to me with the NPC thing. Um, Again, I don't know why it does, because in the world of social media, oftentimes it is those kind of outside the box. It's the different way of doing things. Those are the things that tend to kind of get that attention, to kind of make things kind of go viral. But
Yeah,
it'll never not be strange to me. Every time I watch it, I'm just like, did I just like lose brain cells, brother? Like, did I just did I really just spend like 10 minutes watching people get a rose on live and then say like, "Oh, rose, thank you," and just different things like that? Like, it's interesting. What do you think about it?
literally.
How do you feel about it? I can see you doing it, by the way.
I don't know if I could necessarily do it. That's funny, but it's interesting to me because. So let me, I guess, first explain, because I know a lot of times it's not only social media savvy people here, but business owners and other individuals that may be keen to this space. But NPC is a non-playing character essentially in video games is really where it came out to. And it's interesting because I think the trend itself really started within that community. It's more of a funny meme type of
Yeah,
thing where people were like, "Hey, my favorite characters that we would clown on and create memes off of out of these games. Now we can act as them and do funny things with them." And I think that's really how it kind of picked up. But because it picked up that way, then it started to take TikTok by storm, honestly, because you would have these people that are going live. And for those, we mentioned this in the last episode, but TikTok has this huge push on going live. So
hmm,
people are just going live, figuring out ways to monetize. And Pinky Doll is the one you were referencing about the ice cream. I can't remember obviously who the originator was, but she did a tremendous job of people sending her gifts and her just
yeah,
playing, saying things out loud like "I like ice cream" and being funny and this and that. And what ended up happening by it is because people were starting to figure out that more than anything, I think it's just interesting because it catches your attention for a little bit. And obviously, if you're not somebody who's keen to it, you
right.
probably swipe away pretty quickly. But it just ended up being like this funny, like trolling thing, almost like a Rick Roll type of vibe, so to say, where it was just
Interesting.
so funny that people would, yeah. And I think it started to build like this micro community of people that are on TikTok are sending these gifts, and because it's a little bit of sense of affirmation, also because they'll
That's
include their
interesting.
usernames or they feel good about getting called out by just like you would any celebrity. And these people, these creators, so to say, have started to feel like these celebrities, and so they started to do this. They started to receive all these gifts, get monetized for it. So TikTok caught wind of it. The creators started to figure out a way to make money off of it. Started to become a thing, and now anyone and everyone that you really see is kind of adapting the trend. But
Yeah.
Pinky Doll, I did do a little bit of research, and come to find out, she makes like 7K every time she goes live. So it's like,
Bro, that's
hey,
crazy. Like,
I can I can talk about ice cream too, maybe for about
that's
7K each time I go live.
that's crazy. I literally was just adding my debit card so that we can start to like test all those different things and stuff. And I'm like, people are paying for this experience. Like, not just
Literally.
getting this experience, like people are literally paying to have this experience. And I think the other lesson that I really take from this is something that we talked about in one of our other podcasts, about how so many times people focus on like the broad outcome. They're scared to really focus on a niche. There is money to be made in niches. There is money to be made in
100%.
focusing on your true ICP, the ideal person that you're kind of going after. So many times people are like, well, I think my niche is small. Can it really make me profitable? Can it really grow my business? And I think situations like NPC and things just remind us that, like, once you find a vibe, once you find a niche, once you find the word that keeps getting tossed out now, community. Once you're able to build that community, it's one of the best things that you can do when it comes to truly monetizing, because that community is going to stay
100%.
with you. When you move and you get into your next endeavors or whatever, you can shift that community to go along with you. So when you're talking about even large scale brand building and things like that, this is really the kind of way to go. So I think it's a phenomenal, what's the word that I want to use, it's a phenomenal, I guess, example of, again, it's not these prolific corporate things that really make people money, that make people go viral and things like that. Like, it should really encourage brands to think like, we can, don't be afraid to go outside the box. And I think that's one of the things about TikTok that's a really cool platform. Not every platform is built to let you go outside the box. TikTok is a platform that's built to
100%.
let you go outside the box, think outside the lines, and different things like that.
I think it's honestly brought so many there's always a pro and con side to most things, right? In this case, though, I do think there's been a lot of pros because the media analogy that it made me think of is this whole space of influencers kind of felt almost like the NFL to an extent, where it was reserved for the elite. With the TikTok algorithm updates, with the other social profile algorithm updates, what started to happen is you reward just the creativity and the content, and it opened up the floodgates for kind of like the NIL and the NCAA. It's like all of these athletes were still there and they couldn't do anything to monetize, but who was reaping all of the benefits? The schools were. Same way was these influencers and these platforms were reaping all of the benefits, and it felt like everybody else was just another bench reserve or backup player that really didn't have the opportunity. I think this monetization and other platforms did try, but I think TikTok has taken off by storm because of how people interact on there. But now anybody and everybody, if that's a creative, that's interesting, that has a niche, that has something that they have a passion around and they want to build a following behind, and then they can, not only that, they can make money off of it without having to rely on some kind of corporate partnership, without having to work directly with a brand and rely on sponsorship. They open up the floodgates for anyone and everyone to build something behind something they care about, if that's something they truly wanted to do. And I think the other platforms followed suit, and I love it.
I think that you said something else that I think reminds me of well, something that happened on Facebook not too long ago, and it's about the importance of being one of the early adopters to something like this. So, as we were testing this the other day, Keith went live. I think Keith, TikTok page had like 50 followers or something like that to start. Went live in the first little bit of time, got like 400 views or 400 people who joined and things like that. So early adopters.
I was there. Almost 900 people ended up viewing that live. Within that like half an hour,
which is crazy. Again, from 50 followers. So when you think about the reach, it reminds me of like when Facebook was really pushing Reels, and everybody was like, well, not Reels, and Facebook is in all of this stuff. And it was like, no, if you were publishing Reels at the right time, the amount of impressions and views and reach that you got was astronomical compared to kind of what your following was. So I think that's the other thing that 100%. People are hopefully starting to latch on to, is if you're really serious about kind of growing that audience and things like that, live and all of these different trends is a really, really good way, because that's what the platform is pushing. And not related, but kind of related, I don't think that people really understand the depth to which algorithms have an impact. I think we kind of throw out that word and different things like that, but people really don't understand what it means, and then more importantly, how to actually leverage it to kind of get the benefits for something like that, especially on a platform like TikTok.
I agree. I think, like I said, the opportunity is there. It's exactly like you said, in early days of Facebook, Instagram popped off, and being able to publish on the feed, Reels popping off. TikTok has taken it by storm, and I really do believe going live is an opportunity for everyone to start to build a following that a lot of times people feel stagnated on TikTok because they'll keep publishing and they're only getting 200, 300 views. Take advantage of what the platforms are pushing, because it honestly is an arbitrage for free organic reach, and you can't beat it when the platform is incentivizing it. I'm telling everybody to lean in. I keep watching what's happening. But yeah, the people going live, it's a really awesome community. And I encourage brands to start to be aware of what's happening there, and start to figure out where they can find opportunities to insert their brand into relevant conversations.
Hey, I mean, this is our first one going live, everybody. If we start to see that people are really getting good engagement, if people really like this, this may be something that we do for all of our podcasts, is kind of go live and do a version of that. So we'll be practicing what we preach also, 100%.
I love it. Awesome. So big thing about NPCs, TikTok in general. Yes, this whole fad of a NPC trend is real. Definitely, if you haven't noticed it, just type it in your TikTok search bar. You'll definitely see it. And then from there, you'll start to see people actually going live and talking about it. But even outside of the NPC trend, going live in general is becoming a very, very hot thing. And I encourage everybody to kind of see what's happening there. Let's dive into LinkedIn and AI. And this one, I think we can talk about, fairly quickly. But like I mentioned earlier, I just believe LinkedIn is really doing a solid job of embracing it. And it makes sense. It is the B2B oriented space. It is the more, professional minded platform. It is a different type of persona that people are, putting out when they're on LinkedIn. But it is not shying away from trying to take things and tie in AI. And going back to the many episodes where we've talked about AI, some people are about it, some people are all in on it, and some people are completely away from it.
Right.
And I think Microsoft and LinkedIn specifically is taking a stance of where they're embracing it, they're running with it, and they're trying to make it easy enough for everyone and anybody to utilize, which I love.
Yeah, and I think there's pros and cons to the AI aspect of LinkedIn. Obviously, one of the immediate cons, like we were talking about this morning, is when it comes to the leveraging AI and just automation. So not just artificial intelligence, but automation in general. When it comes to just the amount of trash in your inboxes now. Um,
For sure.
LinkedIn has to figure out a way. And again, I understand we sell some of that. We've built some of that type of stuff. So I won't say that our hands are completely clean from that. But like a lot of good things, people just immediately started to abuse it. So I think those are kind of like the negative things is how do we kind of reel that back? I think one of the most frustrating implications of that is that some people took it to the point where people started making fake profiles to do all of that stuff because it was like if I can use AI
Right.
to create personalities and AI to leverage automation and all of those things, and now I don't have to have a real person, I don't have to have a salary attached to it, I can build this image that I want to. Then you have a rise of the fact that like half the people that are like our employees on our some socially in page don't even work for us. And then we have to go through one by one. LinkedIn picks and chooses randomly if they actually want to like remove these people and things like that. And it's just like,
Right.
I don't understand why they don't have a very simple, like plan in place where basically, in order for a person to say they work for a company, for example, the company page has to approve that person. Like I just think there's like very simple things, but the idea that I can just right now say that I work at the White House and there is just nothing that anybody can do about that. I just find that kind of strange. But the pros are obviously
That's fair.
exactly what you're talking about. They've even released some beta things where when you go to make a post, it even will ask you if you want to help and use AI to help craft your post. So I do love that because AI, it's where it's at. We always make the comment that it won't be AI that replaces you. It'll be somebody that's using AI that will eventually replace you. So I do love to see that
Yep.
LinkedIn is embracing AI. I wish that more platforms were doing it, and I love that they're just making it very easy to use. Because as you know, it's a complicated subject. It's a lot. There's
It
always
is.
new things that are kind of happening. So I love what LinkedIn is doing, and just like anything, there's going to be pros, there's going to be cons for it. But I look forward to kind of seeing even the next level step. Last thing I'll say on that, I can't wait to see what platforms start to take generative AI from a or from a creative standpoint and start to implement it. Now, how cool is that? So, like right now, you can do it and write copy and captions. Imagine if I wanted to spice
Hmm.
up a graphic or something like that, as opposed to going through Canva and doing it. Imagine if natively I can go right into LinkedIn, I can go right into Instagram, and somehow it was already
Yep.
connected to Dolly or it was already connected to Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, and then I could use that right there native in the platform. That's when I start think that you start to get into some next level uses of AI when it comes to social
I
media.
agree.
What do you think?
100%. LinkedIn did mention that they are specifically trying the AI that actually will help you come up with that imagery based on the context of what you put, within your post. Now, I'm interested to see how that works when it's a video or something that's a little bit more interactive because I don't know how it's going to interpret that input quite yet.
Right.
Maybe there's a way. But yes, they are definitely utilizing the context of the copy that you're going to put into a post to help come up with imagery that you may not have to create from scratch. When it does
Crazy.
that, yes, me, I speak from my own perspective where I'm not the most artistical or creative type of
Right.
individual. So for me, it's a lot more difficult to come up with a caption and then figure out what type of imagery I want to
Uh-huh.
utilize versus somebody who may be creative or savvy when it comes to that world. So that for me, somebody like me that's not is a very interesting aspect where I'm like, hey, maybe I can just talk about the thing that I know I want to
Yeah.
talk about, and it's able to come up with something for me. Now, what I'll be interested to see when it happens is just like ChatGPT, when you start to plug in prompts, and one time you get something amazing, and another time you get something you're a little bit like,
Uh-huh.
you're worried about it, and then so it will do obviously a little bit of that, but to help the rule of game when it comes to social media and what everybody is worried about is like the quality, and then they get burnt out by having to create stuff. And I think that comes
100%.
from the mind power. AI will help eliminate that And going back to what you said towards the end there, which is LinkedIn is making it easy, is why I'm an advocate.
Yep.
Because everybody is worried right now, but just like how everybody was worried about internet and the internet companies and people adapted, the same way everybody will come to understand they're using AI one way or another in everything that they do.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I love about AI that I think is people don't talk about as much, and I think it's such a big benefit is it allows your weaknesses to no longer be your true weaknesses. So use the example that you said of, I know how to create imagery. I don't know how to make the most engaging copy. I know what I want to say. I have an idea. I don't understand how to do that. Now that fear is no longer valid because now you can go right into an AI platform and have it help you do those types of things. So I love that aspect of it is, there's certain things like there's certain people we know talk really well, can't write for anything. Certain people who write very well absolutely stumble and things like that. So people know that now you can use
100%.
AI to write a whole script. You just write it out, put it in another version for you that you can just read off a teleprompter. So I love how, especially when it comes to social media like LinkedIn and things like that, a lot of those things that made people and brands hesitate to be on the platform, those are no longer going to be concerns because now you can just use AI to mitigate whatever weaknesses you were going to have.
100%. And this is where it'll start to get interesting, but it'll go in phases, right? What's going to happen with AI, from my perspective, is it's going to help make things a commodity that at one point weren't, where you had to rely on individual talents or skill sets. Once they become a commodity, you're going to kind of go through this phase where it's all available to everybody. So now what helps a person stand out? And you will have those, individuals. It's just like sports, right? You have the top 1%. You'll still have those in the different areas, but you will level up the playing field for a lot of individuals. And what makes you stand out now is going to be more about you as a person, your uniqueness that you bring, how you entertain, how you bring value. And I think it'll help people be more thoughtful, because the things nowadays that are not a commodity, they're focusing so much in that they're just never getting started.
100%.
Now they have no excuse but to start and then separate themselves through the content that they're putting out there. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
100%. Yeah, so no, I mean, you already know we've been embracing AI for literally years, like not an exaggeration when it comes to that. So it's just awesome to again see that it's becoming just easier. It's becoming more mainstream. It's not just becoming a buzzword. It's truly just becoming something that's just integrated into all of our different things, whether it's shopping experiences, social media experiences, all of that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was literally thinking about it this morning because I always have random thoughts when I'm waking up and I'm getting ready. And I was like, what if I could have a video camera right here that stared at me all day long and took in all of the things I'm saying, my motions of how my body's interacting, my body language pretty much, and what I'm doing and how I'm interacting. And then AI could interpret it and pretty much, it's almost like a search engine. You think of Google, but rather than being a search engine, it's pretty much my brain. And when my brain tends to forget things, I could just ask it what's up, and it would literally know everything and anything about me, and pretty much is a facilitator in everything. And I'm just like, that's wild to me to imagine something that can do that.
That is. Now, here's a baby step, a little off topic, but because you mentioned it, have you seen the new update in ChatGPT where you can actually provide it a lot of that information so you don't have to reprompt it with a lot of that stuff anymore? And then moving forward, all of your prompting and all of your work will be done keeping these things always in mind. So you can put in whether it's like your target audience, your demographics, your tone of voice. You can literally build out a profile, and now moving forward, as opposed to starting over by saying, I'm talking to this audience and blah, 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 whatever it is, it'll always keep those parameters in light for whatever else that you're searching.
Interesting.
It's very interesting.
That's actually amazing, because I have, if you looked at my ChatGPT and the threads that I have, it's crazy. There's countless amounts of times where I've gone in there and I've had to kind of re-input a lot of the
same thing. It's like I've already said this.
Yeah, so that's huge. Yes, exactly. No, that's going to be epic. It fascinates me every time. Every time I give it, sometimes I'm so literal with it, and it's funny because I'm going to be interested to see how people continue to evolve the prompts. But sometimes I'm so literal with it. I'll be like, hey, this is my name. This is what I do. This is how I do it. This is my role. This is my responsibility. This is the task that I have at hand. This is what I'm asking you about. Now, with all of that information, how would you approach this? And it's like so critical to what it puts out. And I'm just reading it. And I'm like, this is actually pretty
It is.
fascinating. That something you probably would have came up with on your own, but the speed of getting to that end result
Yep.
is almost one
I
third of
mean,
what it would
even
have
if,
taken my brain to
put
get
it
to it.
this way, brother, even if you don't get it exactly how you want it, getting it to that starting point and then editing it from that starting point still is significantly more
It's
time
huge.
efficient than if you were to do the entire thing from
100%.
scratch. 100%. But no, you would like that because
I
you
love
can
it.
give it all of that information one time and then say, moving forward, use this profile unless I tell you differently, to always give that to always take into account with your outputs. But I mean, as you know, the better the input, the better the output whenever it comes to any of that stuff. So
100%.
unfortunately, you always got to give it all of that information to really get the best, most optimal output right from the jump.
And that's why it's going to be fascinating when AI can watch you, because then you won't have
It
to.
is.
And it will, it's like your best friend almost. It's like sitting next to you and it's like, I know everything about you, bro, because I
It is.
literally watch you and hear everything you're doing. I'm like, that's pretty crazy because I will be able to give you some pretty crazy insight at that
Very
point, in my
random
opinion.
because this. I love this series because of that. Have you seen the new series of Black Mirror?
Bro, no, I just finished because I was behind. I just finished the end of the last season and I'm about to get started. Definitely don't want any spoilers here, but
There's an
I
episode
mean,
that talks
I'm
about exactly what, literally what we're talking about right here in the new Black Mirror season. So won't give any spoilers
I
to
love
it,
it.
but definitely go ahead and check that season out so that we can also talk about that at some point.
I love it. Awesome. And last topic now, because we got a few minutes. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode today, but wanted to talk about, like we mentioned earlier, Elon, X, blocking people,
Elon,
not
that
blocking
man.
people, the government talking about putting protocols into place and this and that. And if there's anything about Elon, is like I was saying earlier, he's definitely a visionary in the entrepreneurial world. He's definitely somebody when it comes to the business sense that a lot of people look up to, almost to an extent now is like he's looking like an entertainer and people are starting to get that side of him. But he has a knack for staying in the headlines and being relevant.
He does.
And the latest thing is Twitter talking about our X. Sorry, it's so hard for me to
I
keep
know.
calling it
I
X
keep
instead of
thinking the
Twitter,
same
but
thing. I'm like, we got to call it X, X, X. I haven't.
X.
I got to call it X, no matter how much we like it or we don't like it.
X is talking about completely removing and getting rid of the blocking feature because of Elon's stance behind free speech and him making sure that everybody has a right to talk about whatever they want to talk
Right.
about. So, what are your thoughts about that? That's pretty crazy.
I think so. I'll give you my general thoughts about it, and then I'll give you my specific thoughts on it. So I think my general thoughts are, I don't disagree with a lot of what Elon thinks conceptually. I disagree when it comes to the practical application of it. And I think that not everybody can separate those two things, but I can separate those. I can say that, that sounds like a good idea in theory. In an ideal, perfect world, I love the idea. We don't live in an ideal, perfect world, though. So let's talk practicality. So I say that because on the surface, the idea sounds great. I love the idea of complete free speech. I love the idea of not being able to just block somebody because they have a different point of view. I love the idea. I think that's one of the things that really led to kind of some of the division that we have is that what social media started to do with the negative aspects of targeting, for example, is it curated pages where it was only what you think. So if I thought something and then I went on
Right.
Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, all of my thoughts were always supported. There was never any other conversation about a different way of thinking. It was whatever I thought, that's what I was surrounded by. So I love the idea of not being able to just block somebody or remove somebody because it's a different way of thinking. I like that. I think that we should all be critical,
Mm-hmm.
take a step back, take in both sides. Now let's get practical though. We all know there is so much spam and so many bots on X as a platform. That was part of why it took so long for the purchasing and the acquisition to even go through. There are so many. So
Right.
now the idea of that I got spam all over my posts, I just can't block any of them. Now the idea that people are harassing me, for example, whatever it is, I'm just throwing out these different topics and things like that. So not just the difference of opinion, but I think there's levels to that type of stuff. And when I think of spam, I think of true harassment. Um, I think of other things, there may be reasons, for example, that I don't want to have Kaushal to be able to see my stuff. You're talking about legal ramifications and different things like that. So I just think that when you just say
For
that
sure.
nobody is allowed to block anybody, practically, I just think that brings on a ton of different practical issues, some of the which I just said right there, whether it's
It does.
irritating, it's just irritating. Now I got spam that's all over my stuff. Or, like I said, even more serious things where it's like there's a reason that Kaushal is blocked. Like there's a reason that he can't see my stuff.
Right.
Privacy concerns. You're talking about, yeah,
Hmm.
legal things for that type of stuff. And now I just don't have any recourse to just block somebody that I maybe have
Right.
put some, yeah, put some bar against legally or different things like that. Like I just don't agree with that. What do you think?
I think, I mean, you pretty much, I'm going to pretty much reiterate a lot of what you said, and because I'm on an agreement that at the end of the day, if this was something that they wanted to be practical, like most things in the world, you have to have a governing body. The only way I even really see this being feasible is if Twitter actually took a stance around putting the resources and the team together to actually moderate all of the first, let's just start at level one, all of the bad shit, the pornography, the sexual stuff, the very bad, whatever it is that
Right.
people don't want to see,
Right.
you got to start there. Now, obviously, that's standard in the community guidelines and they do that. But a lot of times we've seen that those things kind of just go unnoticed and they still
Absolutely.
live out there. That's level one. Level two, now it goes back into the nuances of the human beings. You're exactly right about privacy issues. What if I don't want somebody to see my stuff? What if I don't like somebody and they're harassing me and I want to get away from that? What if because I shared my opinion about one thing and now I'm just getting attacked? So I think I agree that people being open to seeing all that information and not only having one perspective, I think is a huge advantage. The downside of that is not every human being thinks the same way,
Right.
which is some people will take ill advantage of that, and some people will understand that and it will do good for them. But if Twitter didn't get involved, or sorry, X didn't get involved and step in the appropriate
Mhm.
situations to assist when problematic
Mhm.
situations arose, then I think you're allowing yourself a lot of not just legal trouble but backlash in general. So if you're not going to put the, like I said, the resources, the team, the infrastructure in place to support that type of ask,
Mhm.
then I think you're just allowing a wildfire almost to just erupt, right? And then level three is ultimately the nuance of, let's just say I'm an individual human being. I do
Right.
have my viewpoints. I do have it. Yes, I may be more open to understanding other individuals, but at the end of the day, it is, I guess, your life, that one individual's way of viewing life, that one individual's perspective.
Right.
And if they wanted to surround themselves with that energy, I believe they have the right to do that at the end of the
100%.
day. And if Twitter doesn't find one way or another to support that, sorry, X again, doesn't find a way to support that, then, like I said, I don't think it's exactly like you said. It's not practical.
Right.
And I'm optimistic to believe that Elon does want to do this. How practical it will be to really put something like that together is hard for me to justify
Right.
because all of the mega social platforms have tried to moderate, and it just doesn't
It's
happen.
just too much
It just
content.
does
I
not
mean, it's
happen.
just it's just way too
It's too
much.
much, yeah.
And then there's no, speaking, tying AI into what we're talking about. There's no way the AI isn't advanced enough to include contextual clues into certain things. Meta went through this a bunch where it's
100%.
like you post a certain word, no matter in what context, and your post gets flagged and banned, and you're like, what are we talking about? That's not
What
even.
happened?
Did you read the actual
Exactly.
sentence? Like, what do we mean by that? So there's just not a way practically to moderate the amount of content, the amount of words, to kind of do any of those different things right there. So, but
I agree.
to your point, but this is where I think that getting into the business aspect of it, I'm sure his investors are kicking him all the time. You know, Even if this is just a threat, well, now the ramifications are, I was reading today, now they're talking about if he even attempts to move forward with it, you won't be able to download Twitter on Google Play Store, Apple Store. You won't be able to find it in app stores and
Oh my
different
god.
things anymore. So now imagine being investors. Imagine our clients and brands who are like, so what does this mean for my brand? How is this going to affect viewership? How are
100%.
this going to affect that? And that's where I know he doesn't care about that, but doing what we do, that's where some of those decisions start to get a little bit kind of frustrating. Also, it's because it's like there's so many, like, your conceptual idea has so many real life actual implications, while it's almost like
for sure.
he's playing. It's almost like that negative aspect when you really talk about like people that are ultra rich and elitist and some of the stereotypes of like it's almost like everything else around them is just a pawn because they're so disconnected to all of this that to him he's like, I don't care.
For sure.
But it's like this is just what I want to do. Whereas to like the billions of people who will be impacted, it's like, nah, this has real monetary ramifications if you go this will actually affect
100%.
us. While to you it's like a project, to us this is like meaningful. This can cause issues with our revenue flow. Like we're waiting to kind of see what happens in this situation. So that's one of the things that kind of frustrates me sometimes with his decision is I get the concept of always being for the people and things like that, but it's like sometimes it's almost like I feel like yeah, like he's just kind of playing with X as his toy. Like it's literally
Yeah.
just a toy to him. Like it's not anything else besides like a project, something that just exists for him to do whatever he wants to do. And it's just like all of us, and more importantly,
That's fair.
our brands and the people that we represent, we got to kind of figure out, well, what are we now going to do? It's not as stable as I would have liked it to be. And I guess that's the
No,
ultimate
it's a
kind of
wild,
thing.
wild west.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a wild, wild west. You know, the one thing about I'm a big fan of Elon, and you know, I've followed him for a long time. I love Tesla. I love SpaceX. Twitter X now that used to be my favorite platform for the longest time, and slowly but surely I've even stopped. Still consume it, but I've stopped posting as much on there. But him being a visionary, and what I've learned about many other visionaries in the
Hmm.
past is a visionary will help push the needle and keep things innovative. But a lot of the times they are extremely, extremely disconnected
Hmm.
in the sense of people.
Facts.
And they may be visionaries, but they aren't the best when it comes to understanding how to operate people, how to, you know, think about the greater good. They're thinking about the greater good and like how to feasibly do it, but they're not thinking about the ramifications, like you said, or the implications that actually happens on a small one-to-one scale.
100%.
And I think that's where brands, us as marketers, many business owners, they're thinking about it on that one-to-one because for them, the one-to-one is a much, much bigger reality.
Yeah. No, I think as we start to wrap up, I think you said something that I think is super on par and very appropriate. It's yeah, visionaries do think differently, and there's the pros and there's the cons to that. Like so, in that same word, I
100%.
remember being very, very impressed the first time that I read Tesla's 10-year plans and just how so forward thinking, like what he was talking about then, people were laughing at and just all of those different things. And I remember reading it and being like,
I remember.
if he's able to even kind of sort of do any of the
Think
things
about
that
it.
he's talking about right now, that's just wild.
Right.
And this is coming from what at the time what was a car company and different things like that. And so I think to your point, you hit it on the nail on the head. There's pros to that, and then there's just the cons to it. And that's where a good business
Sure.
and leadership lesson I think out of this whole situation is this is where surrounding yourself with a solid team is so critical, especially a team
Important.
that complements the things that you can't do. Not surrounding yourself with a bunch of
100%.
yes people, not surrounding yourself with a bunch of people where they think that everything you say is the best, but people who think differently, operate differently, have different skill sets, have different strengths, people who have the ability, like you mentioned, to take your vision and then say, okay, how do we actually create steps to execute this? What are our points going to be? What are our checkpoints going to be? How are we going to adjust and pivot? How are we going to make this turn this vision to a reality? So I think that's the other thing is you got to have a solid team around you, man. You got to.
For sure. I think all visionaries have, and I think it goes unnoticed a lot of the times because they're more behind the scenes. But I do believe truly, truly that a lot of the times these visionaries, allowing them to focus on what has made them great is what you want them to do. And you're exactly right. You have to build around the areas where you may fall short. And I don't know if Elon's done that with X. He definitely built a solid infrastructure at SpaceX and with Tesla as well. We'll see what happens with X. It's always going to be fascinating. But for brands, like I always tell them when something weird is happening in the world of social, just keep your ears close to the ground, keep your eyes open, and just when you find an opportunity, take advantage of it. Otherwise, just watch and observe. But yeah, it's kind of weird. I've definitely been pulling away, just like I said, as far as definitely publishing on it.
Yeah.
But it still has relevancy in a lot of
100%.
micro communities. So we'll see what happens there. And the last note I'll make is going back to the 10-year plans you mentioned. For anybody that doesn't know, Elon created those 10-year plans. I think he's on his third one now.
Yep.
Definitely read them from the first one to now, and you'd be surprised how close he actually gets to achieving a 10-year plan 10 years before the end of it, right?
Yeah,
so it's
no.
like, wow.
No, we're on the same page.
It's awesome.
Well, now this is good stuff,
So
man.
I think that's it. Yeah, great episode today. Covered very high level recap real quick. The AI and what LinkedIn is doing there. Definitely check that out. Encourage everybody to play around with their LinkedIn profiles. You'll see it. They're openly embracing it. They're openly making it easily available. On top of that, Elon. I always love talking about Elon. Won't be the last time we talk about Elon.
Not at all.
X is still a force to stay until we start to see some kind of shift in the landscape. And last but not least, if you want to be an NPC or if you want to bring your own special spice to whatever it is that you're wanting to do, explore live on TikTok and see what it could honestly do for you. I want everybody to take advantage of it.
Yes, sir. This is Kaushal and Lorenzo again here with Seriously Social, y'all. Episode 17. We'll be back in about 2 weeks. Stay tuned. We actually plan on having a special guest for the next one, so really, really excited about that. And if you enjoyed this live, give us some feedback. Let us know. We'd love to keep doing this. You can find us on Seriously Social on YouTube, Spotify, any place that podcasts are available. Yep. Apple Podcasts, all of that stuff. You're looking for Seriously Social. Appreciate you all tuning in. Kaushal, it's always good times hanging out with you, brother. Till next time.
Appreciate it, my man. Everybody like, comment, share, and we appreciate y'all support. Till next time.
Yes, sir. Take it easy, brother.